are lots of reasons why body shops are not certified by OEMs. Maybe you're familiar with some of these. You don't want to go through the hassle and expense. You don't believe it will bring in more business and that the return on investment will take too long. Or just that insurers won't pay higher rates. But that's the wrong way to look at it. Rather than thinking of it as a financial issue, think of it as a cultural one. For Drew Bryant, CEO of DB Orlando Collision in Orlando, Florida, following OEM procedures and getting OEM certifications is paramount. And in recent years, he's worked hard to make sure dealerships and body shops understand that. Okay, Drew, how would you sum up the state of the collision repair industry in one sentence?
One word would be just conflicting.
Okay, tell me about that word, conflicting.
The amount of just false information and false perception and strategic just people, but just strategically naive to what they're doing and what they're not doing. And and I don't mean that from a negative perspective. I mean, positive and or negative, two different. There's just a lot of really conflicting information out there, and I could not. I do my best to think of it from the consumer's perspective and trying to choose a facility and understand all of the things that are happening within cars or the industry. And conflicting would be a word that I would use for it.
Okay. Well, so in that vein there, I guess, let's go to the positives for a second here. What do you think the industry has excelled at in recent years?
I think that we're doing a much better job at embracing the importance of certified repair. I think consumers are beginning to become more aware and more educated on why proper repair would be important. I think from a media distribution and or the OEs, although we got a long way to go. I think that they're finally really starting to understand, although potentially a little late to the party, but understanding the importance of these things and really ensuring that cars are being repaired at certified facilities and mandating that. I think we've done a good job, right? To the condition of what the industry was at versus the direction that it's heading at. Probably most definitely a debatable topic. But if you were to ask me, I would say that transition we're doing, beyond just the best with what we have. I think there's a lot of folk and a lot of people, a lot of shop owners, a lot of trade, a lot of trade influencers that are all really doing their due diligence at this point to influence this industry in the right direction.
Okay, fantastic. Now we can go back to what do you think the industry can be doing better?
I think the biggest ticket there is just going to be regulating and mandating, the programs that are intended to establish brand loyalty and build trust with consumers that, the integrity of the car is restored, etc. I think what I've witnessed over the last, several years, the more and more I investigate the OE programs, how they're being regulated, what, how they validate who's on the program, how they ensure that those standards are being followed, is disheartening. And it seems that the more I dig and the more that I try to expose and really help influence, there are some OEs that are 110% on board. They're willing to listen, they're willing to put their fixed ops guys in the room and really let's make an honest effort to work through these kinks. There's been efforts with some particular brands that they're influencing the sales transaction of purchasing a car. So as consumers are buying a car, they're getting literature and they're getting a portion of their delivery, if you will, educating them on the importance of a potential OEM only policy, incentive to utilize a certified facility. And then there's other OEs that just literal slam the door and look, if it ain't broke, let's not fix it and put our head down. And I think we gotta do, as an industry, a better job of holding those particular folks accountable, whether that's aftermarket and or on the OE side, to embracing the importance of it and really embracing the opportunity that change brings, right? I think we're a little too narrow-minded at times.
Okay. All right, so you're obviously a proponent of OEM certification, and I think we've seen why that is. What are you doing to promote it, either just at your shop or across a wider audience?
Sure, yeah. So separate from working with the youth and establishing their apprenticeship programs, we've got programs with college level technical schools as well as the high school level that we take the top of the class out of those programs, and we get the opportunity. We work closely with the instructors to interview those kids and then provide them tooling and a detailed, structured apprenticeship that really can help them identify not necessarily what they believe they want to do within the industry, but I'm big on personality testing, so I really dig deep into what we believe they're going to be strong suited at, and see how it aligns with what their vision and what they're trying to accomplish is, and then kind of show them that this industry is not all just about grinding and sanding on cars. And then from a corporate level, we work. My team works really close with the OEs on the dealership side, and really helping redefine not necessarily what a DRP program would be, but the relation between the confidence of a consumer going to a facility representing the vehicle brand and potentially representing a program, but getting those vehicles from the dealerships to certified shops. And I think that entire relationship is just it is built and like the foundation of just old school, good old boy handshake business that we have to get away from. And as I continue to reach out to the OEs, I've had the opportunity recently to get all of their fixed ops guys for the Florida and South Georgia markets in a room, and really walk them through all of the positive impacts of simply referring, right? They seem to kind of scratch their head and say, well, why would we send cars? What's in it for us, kind of thing. And in the world of a dealership, presenting that to them from this is the service level, this is how it's going to impact your parts, this is what I know is going through your drive. And like I said, that's what I mean. Some of those OEs have really embraced that, right? I'm putting those guys in a room, I'm walking them through some metrics and some statistics that kind of really start to scratch their head a little bit and go, we might be onto something here. And the folks that take the time to listen and then work to implement and follow the advice and really just be open-minded to working with us on each individual consumer transaction, or how we want to continue the relationship moving forward, how we want to grow upon. It's working really, really well. And then the ones that I can't get those guys in the room, and there's a conflict there that old school, and then naturally that's leveraged by, unfortunately, insurance professionals that go, well, I don't know, this doesn't seem necessary. It seems like we're over repairing it a little bit. And when the dealership is validating those things, it makes it challenging. So we are on a strict schedule with those dealer partners, and we're working with as many brands as we can in our markets, and hoping to be able to get enough dialogue that I can use it as case studies and distribute it to other peered shops, in other states, and see if we can get a little momentum and head in the right direction.
Okay, that's awesome. Now, you mentioned insurers, which is always a, hot button topic with collision shop owners. What advice would you give to body shop owners in regards to insurer relations and even DRPs? Like, do you guys work with DRPs or?
Yeah, so we don't have any DRPs. I think getting into the business and initially and realizing just I didn't believe that those programs were in the interest of consumers. and I've got a lot of friends and peers that obviously have made the business decision to go that route. But just the folks that are within those programs, a lot of really good people that I've met over the years, and they're really just they're strategically kept under a rock, and I don't mean that as an insult. It's part of the program, and my advice to those shops would be to read your procedures, right? Study them hard. Knowledge is power. The more if you don't know, you don't have it. Reach out to somebody that you believe would, and really work to help the consumer understand and have an expectation as to why these decisions are important, right? I tell customers coming in, like the insurer, business of retention, right? We can't hold it against them to look to mitigate their costs in any case. But there's no reason we need to be enemies or work against each other, right? It just simply needs to be, look, there's a book on how to fix the car. Here's the documentation on how to do so. This particular party agrees with reimbursing you for it or they don't. And, just stand firm. As soon as you start to kind of peel back and just say, look, we're just going to follow this standard and take whatever we get for the repair, and we'll do the best job that we can. Just know and understand that is not in the safety and or ethical interest of any consumer that's walking through. And at least if those decisions are going to be made and you're going to make the decision to move forward with any alternative methods that are outside of the standards of the manufacturer, fine, so be it. That's between you, that's your family and their family, whatever. But at least make sure that everybody that's involved in that transaction has a clear understanding of what's being done and what's not being done. I think that's probably the most important thing going forward.
Okay, excellent. Now, all right, switching topics here a little bit. What are your thoughts on the move towards hybrid and electric vehicles, and what does that mean for the collision business?
Yeah, EVs have been a hot topic in my 20 groups and the folks, especially on the mechanical side. I've owned a few of them. My wife had a Model X. I have a Model S that I drive sometimes when I need to get somewhere on a quick commute. I absolutely love the technology. I'm intrigued by the entire concept. I'm not intimidated by it by any means. For me, all it does is just drive home the point of the necessity of proper repair even more, right? It's a total different case of liabilities and risk associated with that. It influences a big part of our onboarding and training for the technicians coming in, and it's no longer a circumstance of saying, okay, when you raise this car up, this is a safety area. We really probably need to review some key things before you get to this stage of training. But now you're in a circumstance that if you touch the wrong cable, you potentially could die, right? And I don't think that there's enough consistent information out there that protects the technicians that are involved in these cars. And once again, it creates that conflict of I don't want to touch them. They're going to ruin the engine. Look, I don't think that it's anything that we need to be concerned with now. Parts, availabilities, right? That's got to be something that we've got to iron out and figure out. And then back to those programs, I've peer shops that have invested greatly in tooling and the equipment necessary to be able to support those programs, only for the program to change the entire list of requirement, 9 months in. And as shop owners, we're not in a position to be able to continue to make, $600,000-$700,000 investments on an annual basis and not be able to reap the return on any of that equipment. So, I don't care how big your operation is. I think once again, there's a lot of opportunity that comes with, with that different change in vehicle chemistry, and I think that it's coming sooner than we think it is.
Have you had any electric vehicles come into your shop?
Yeah, most definitely. A lot of hybrids, right? Especially with the pickup trucks in my area. There's quite a few Rivian shops within the area. Tesla reached out to us and wanted us to become on the program. But as I look at that stuff from a bird's eye, there's not enough, for me to be able to get on board with one of those programs and represent one of those manufacturers. I look at their trend over the last several years of decisions that were made and operationally how their programs were managed. And if that's changed, right? If it looks like we're putting it together going downhill, I'm gonna give it some time before I pull the trigger and move forward. And the challenge becomes, okay, then if that work's not accepted, well, where are we referring that work to? And those, in our market, it's becoming more scarce of a referral, right? But I don't think it's as complex or as complicated as we make it out to be. I think a lot of the baby boomers that are kind of pulling out of the industry or on their way out are a little intimidated by the technology. And I think the way that the vehicles are engineered and what I'm seeing in my studies and travel, once we get it under our belts and we really have comprehension of how these things are engineered and go together and availability of the programs and whatnot, I think that we're going to end up with a more consistent work product. There's far more variables in the standards and traditional methods of repair on a normal vehicle. The way that the vehicles are engineered and the way that they're written to be repaired, I think, in time is going to create a confidence in knowing that there's really only one way to fix this. And I think that's going to be good. I think we got some time before we're there, but I think that's definitely a step in the right direction.
Yeah. Well, once again, it all comes down to education, so.
For sure.
Yeah. All right, well, on that note, what does the future of the industry look like to you?
I definitely think that EVs are going to become more and more. I think the importance of calibration and ADAS, we're already there. Today, it could not be more important, and I know that's been a buzzword and a topic for the last several years, but there's a reason for that. These cars are watching your eyeballs. They're reading your body language in the vehicle, whether it's infrared or cameras in the car. My Tesla, it's an older one. It's a 2017, and overnight it updated in my driveway. And the following morning, over a Wi-Fi update, the car backed me out of my driveway, drove me all the way to my new location, okay, and parked itself, and I never touched anything. And to have a vehicle that has the capacity to be, not necessarily to be able to accomplish that, okay, that's impressive in itself, but to do that on an update, right, a wireless update overnight, for me just drives home that I believe it's going to be all about the calibration, and that's the concerning aspect for me as well, because as the insurers continue to press to have 10, 15-year-old methodology when applying decisions on reimbursement for these vehicles, shops have to be vigilant in making sure that knowledge, they've researched and understand what is necessary, right? The days of just pre and post scanning a car have sailed. There are, whether it's a dynamic reset or the car's got to be plugged in and formally, completely calibrated. Those requirements need to be researched every time. And we're seeing case by case when we're logging in and understanding what's necessary to, restore all of those components within the vehicle. It's changing, right? I think moving forward, we've got to be really cautious on what we're investing in and what brands we're looking to represent. But I think the computer side of technology is going to be big. For example, we purchased some equipment to be able to do Honda and Nissans and calibrations in-house. And when I purchased the equipment and tooling to do so, this is a few years back, but prior to receiving the equipment, it had already been succeeded. They already replaced it with different methods. And then we're opening up this equipment that was obsolete. And we were in early, right? That was the early stages when everyone was trying to put it together. But yeah, we've got to keep our target on the computer side of this game and really make sure that we're doing everything in our due diligence to restore that portion of the vehicle.
With customers' lives in body shops' very hands, it's imperative to drive out improper repair practices and usher in standards that will ensure that every car that leaves a body shop is repaired to pre-loss condition. That's why Drew Bryant is taking the lead, working with OEMs and the Florida Auto Body Association to make sure body shop owners understand why standard procedures are important for both them and their customers. It's this dedication to lifting up the industry and ensuring a sense of safety and responsibility for others that makes him a vehicle care rock star.